This is day 15 of the 30-day Excel challenge. So today we're going to do conditional formatting part 2. So on day 6, we covered part 1 and we saw how conditional formatting helps you visually guide attention with colors, bars, and icons. So today we're going to explore a few more scenarios where we can do the same thing so that we can visually separate what matters from what doesn't. Because at the end of the day, data is only useful if someone notices the right data points. And formatting is what makes that happen. So let's begin. Throughout today's lesson, we're going to be dealing with 3 different data sets with a list of orders made by customers. What we need to do is we need to help the managers outline the data points that are important to them. So the first thing we need to do is highlight entire rows based on their order status. So as you can see, we have different order statuses. If I just click this, you're going to see that we have different order statuses. We have cancelled, completed, pending. We can highlight the cancelled orders in red and the pending orders in yellow. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the entire data set. I'm going to click on conditional formatting and then go to new rule and then click on use a formula to determine which cells to format. And then I'm going to enter this field and then I'm going to type equals $ E1 equals cancelled. That way, all the records that have an order status of cancelled are highlighted in red. So now, to highlight that in red, I'm going to click on Format and then More Colors. And then I'm going to just select red of my choice. So I think this is good. So click OK, and then click OK again, and then click OK one more time. And now all the cancelled orders are highlighted in red. So the next thing I need to do is I need to repeat the same steps, but this time I need to make sure that all the records that are pending are highlighted in yellow. So once again, I select my entire data set, then go to conditional formatting, new rule, and then click on use a formula to determine which cells to format. And then inside this cell, I type in equals $ E1 equals pending this time. And then I go to format, and then I'm going to give this a color of, let's say, let's use this color. And then I'm going to click OK, and then click OK again. And now all the pending orders are highlighted in yellow. So now we can easily see the most critical rows in this table. The next thing we need to do is highlight any orders placed on the weekend. So if any orders were made on a Saturday or Sunday, we need to color it in. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So first, select the purchase date column and then go to conditional formatting and then go to new rule and then click on use a formula to determine which cells to format and then click into the field. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to use the OR function so that I can determine whether the active cell I'm in is either a Saturday or a Sunday. So I'll just type in OR. And then I'm going to use the weekday function. And what the weekday function does is that it checks what day of the week a date is. But the number it returns depends on the type they actually use. So for us, the first argument is going to be the date. And in our case, we're simply just going to type the cell that the date value is in. And then the second argument is what controls how Excel numbers each day of the week. So if I type in 2, this allows Excel to number Monday as 1, Tuesday as 2, all the way to Sunday as 7. So I'm just going to close that bracket and then equals 6. And then I'm just going to do the same thing for Sunday. So weekday, C2, and then I'm going to add 2. Then I'm just going to close the bracket. And then I'm going to click on format. And then I'm just going to click on, I'll say yellow, click OK, click OK. Now all the weekend orders are flagged in yellow, as you can see. And if you want to have a look at your rule, the rule you've just created, just click on conditional formatting, manage rules, and then you can see that this rule has been applied to the purchase date column. So we're going to move on to conditional formatting with pivot tables. So we're now moving on to a new data set just to demonstrate that. There is actually another example of this on day 12, pivot tables part 2. So have a look at that if you want to see it. We're first going to convert this to a pivot table. So Alt NVT is the keyboard shortcut. And then I'm just going to click on OK. So what we want to do is we want to highlight the top 10% of products that are generating the highest revenue for us. So I'm going to drag the product name field into the rows box, and then we'll drag the total spend field into values. And then what we can do is we can highlight all the cells here, and then click on Home tab, and then Conditional Formatting, and then go to Top Bottom Rules. And then you're going to go to Top 10%. Then I'm going to click that. And then I'm going to choose the green fill for this. So green fill with dark green text. And then click OK. And now you can see the product that's performing the best in our pivot table. And if you want, you can actually remove this blank field because we don't need it. So what I can do is I can just go to the filter button and then just uncheck that and then click OK. And that's a pivot table that's showing the top performing product. And if you want, you can sort this from largest to smallest so that it stands out even more. And now we've got the product that's generating the most revenue for us. How about highlighting the bottom 10%? So the lowest performing one. So make sure you highlight your data and then go to conditional formatting and then go to top bottom rules and then bottom 10%. And then make sure this is highlighted in light red fill. Click OK. And there you have it. So the lowest performing product is highlighted and the highest performing product is also highlighted. And if you want, you can actually add color scale to this. So if I was to highlight all of the cells once again, I can go to conditional formatting and go to color scales. If I want to use, let's say, green, white, red fill, you can see that the colors are actually fading into another color. So the green is for the top performing products, and then it fades into white, and then it fades into red. It's actually gradually increasing the intensity of the red. So the lowest performing product is in a stronger and more intense shade of red compared to the ones in the middle. And the best performing product is in a stronger shade of green compared to the others in the middle. So that emphasizes which ones are the best performing products and which ones are the lowest performing products. So we're now back on our data set. And what we want to do is we want to focus on profit margins this time. So let's use icons to classify the different profit margins we can see. And basically, we'll visually identify which ones are high, which ones are medium, and which ones are low. So we can use the red, green, and yellow icons for that. So let's go back to our data set. And this time we're going to focus on profit margins. So some of our orders are actually profitable, but some of them are not even scraping it. So what we want to do is we want to use icons to group the different profit margins in our data so that we have the green ones as high margins, the yellow ones for medium margins, and the red ones for low margins. So what we're going to do is we're going to select all the values inside the profit margin column, and then we'll go to conditional formatting, and then we'll go to icon sets. And then we're going to click on more rules. And now what we can do is we can go to this section here. So I'm going to type in 40% because what I'm going to tell Excel is I want the profit margins that are greater than or equal to 40% to have green circles next to them. Now, in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change this drop down to a number. And I'm going to do the same thing for this one, because Excel reads them as numerical values, even though we understand that they're percentages. So for this, I'm going to type 40 again. And once again, we're telling Excel that we want to add green circles next to any value that's greater than or equal to 40%. And then we want to add yellow circles where the profit margin is between 15% and 40%. And then we want to add red circles where the profit margin is below 15%. So have a look at this. So green circles when value is greater than or equal to 40%, yellow circle when it's less than 40%, and greater than or equal to 15%, which is just a long-winded way of saying between 15 and 40%. And add a red circle when it's less than 15%. I'm going to click OK. And as you can see, we now have yellow circles where the profit margin is between 15 and 40%. We've got red circles where it's below 15%, and we have the green circles where it's greater than 40%. So now profitability can be seen instantly. So let's move on to the next example. And what we want to do now is we want to now flag all late orders that should have been completed by now. So any order that was made and it's over 30 days old should be highlighted so that we can attend to them urgently. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight all the values in the purchase date column. And then we're going to go to the Home tab and then Conditional Formatting. And then we're going to click on New Rule. And then we're going to click on Use a Formula to determine which cells to format. And then we click inside the empty field. So we're going to use the AND function. And the reason why we're using this is because we want two things to be true. So we want to highlight records that, number one, are older than 30 days old. And number two, that haven't been completed yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the today function to find out what today's date is. And then we're going to subtract that by D2. So that's going to be the first cell in the purchase date column. And then we're saying whether that's greater than 30. So with this section, what we're telling it to do is it's going to calculate how many days have passed since the order was made. And we're checking if that result is greater than 30. So basically, this entire section, all we're asking is, has it been more than 30 days since the order was placed? And if yes, then this first part is true. So now we need to add the second part. So for the second part, we're looking at the F column. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in $F2. I'm going to say it's not equals to completed. Completed. And then we close bracket. So basically, this is looking at the order status column, and we're looking for the order status for that row. And we're saying that it should not equal completed because we're checking if the order was not completed. So basically, for this second section, what we're asking is this order not marked as completed? If yes, then the second part is true. And if that's the case, that means the first section and the second section are both true, which means we need to mark this as red. So I click on format, and then I go to more colors, and then I'm just going to select a red, click OK, click OK again, and then I click OK one more time. So as you can see, any order that's older than 30 days and it's either pending or cancelled is highlighted, just like we want. Now, there is one more thing that we need to do, and we need to focus on profit margins again. We need to flag all the profit margin values that are extremely high. We want to highlight this because it's either telling us one of two things. Number one, there may be an error in the way that the profit margins are being calculated. Or number two, there could be an outlier in the pricing somewhere that we're not aware of. But either way, we need to highlight them so that we can investigate them further. So what we deem to be extremely high profit margins is basically 45%. So anything above 45% must be colored in. So what we're going to do first is highlight all the values in the profit margin column. And then we're going to go to home, and then we'll go to conditional formatting, and then highlight cell rules. And then we click on greater than. I'm going to type in 45%. I'm going to choose a bright yellow field this time, or yellow field with dark yellow text. And then click OK. So now all the suspicious profit margins are now flagged, and it now leaves us room to investigate this further. So what do I want you to remember with conditional formatting in general? You need to use conditional formatting to focus on the important data points. So you want to use it to flag things like late orders or outliers or even errors. Because what you need to remember is we're trying to turn data into clear signals. So you know you're using it well if your end users know exactly where to look without you having to say a word. But try not to use too many rules at once, otherwise it's going to cause confusion to your users. Because the ultimate goal is just trying to make sure that your users can focus on the data points that matter to them the most. That's always the focus with conditional formatting. So use colors, data bars, and icons strategically to guide attention as opposed to create confusion for your users. So if you do want to practice this, there is a workbook in the description below, and it will guide you to the GitHub link with the Excel workbook where you can continue practicing conditional formatting. But until then, that wraps up conditional formatting part 2, and I hope you enjoy this one.